Good morning. Thank you for coming. For those of you, I know you probably know Mr. Mike, but some of you may not know who I am. I'm Rochelle Savoy. I'm the middle school teaching and learning coordinator. And so I've been in this role for the last 2 years. I've been at ASD for 9 years though. So in a variety of different capacities, and I'm also an ASD parent. I have a child in K2. So welcome to our Talk Tuesday.
Rochelle, I'm just going to add a little bit so you even know context, because Rochelle's a very important part of the middle school and probably does not herself justice in introducing herself. When I first came, right, we didn't have a curriculum coordinator in the middle school. Our TLC was in the TLC in the admin building, and things ran, and Rochelle worked as a coach there, right? So coaching situation in a school is more when a teacher wants some help with instruction, but it's not like a you must be coached, right? It's a voluntary thing and keeps Rochelle busy. But when I came, and we noticed in Christine as well, noticed from other schools, in a school you need someone really running your curriculum, like who's really sitting with your teachers and your department chairs on a day-to-day basis thinking about what are we teaching, why are we teaching it, how are we teaching it. And that was a void, and so Rochelle has come over, right, in my second year, so this is your second year in that role, and she works really a lot with our department. So once an 8-day cycle, she's sitting in a room with the department chair and all the teachers, and they're planning the units that are being taught. Why are we teaching this? How are we teaching? What's the assessment look like? All that deep sort of education stuff. So she's not just here doing curriculum stuff. She's doing the deep day-to-day work that nobody sees, right? And it's really important, and she does a fantastic job. So there,
well, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. And I do. I love my job because I think it's like a great, not that you don't have a really great job, Mr. Mike, but I have a really great opportunity to work with the teachers, and I get into classrooms quite a lot too and see the learning with students. Again, not that you don't, but it's a nice bridge of a role, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do that role. And today we're going to talk about student-led conferences, which are going to be upcoming on April 30th and May 1st. And I did find out that you both have grade 6 students. Can I quickly ask what grades your students are in the middle school?
My daughter Kim does in 6th grade.
In 6th grade as well? 7th? 6th grade? Son. Okay, so you would have been, you were at ASD last year as well, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm Everett's mom.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, I'm so...
Any extra information I have?
Yes. Everett is in my advisory, actually. So I apologize.
It's okay, we've met once.
We've met once. But I'm also a 7th grade advisor, so that also add to my role.
Give you context as to why I like to get out extra information.
Okay.
To help.
Excellent. The reason I ask is we made the shift last year to a student-led conference approach. So if you have as 6th grade parents, you are kind of probably familiar with a student-led conference approach because the elementary has their spring conferences in that way as well. And middle school, we saw the benefits, and we'll get to why we've shifted. But this is year 2 for us in the middle school to do a student-led approach to the conferences in the spring. So this is why, we're still building context, we're still communicating kind of the why and the how of what it looks like in the middle school, which is why we're having this Talk Tuesday. I'm sorry.
No, really.
As always, we really like to kind of put our values, missions, and attributes at the center of all the work. And actually, specifically, our attributes, I don't know if you've noticed on the table, there are some cards with our attributes on it, and that's going to come up as we talk about the why of our student-led conferences. And this is a really great opportunity and a great place for us to really bring those attributes to life and to develop those things that we know our students need to be successful in the world today. All right, so we have 3 outcomes of this session. We hope to have a better understanding, or you walk away with a better understanding of why we are prioritizing a student-led approach. We're going to go through some logistics, what the conferences will entail, and talk a little bit about how to make the experience meaningful for all involved. And that how is actually going to take us into the classrooms. So hopefully we only talk for about 10-15 minutes, and we want to go and do some walks and look at the learning that's happening right now to start thinking about, okay, what do I really want to know more about the learning that's happening in the day-to-day experiences of our students? So the how is actually going to take us out of the space into the different classrooms that are happening right now in the middle school. Any questions, clarity about, hope that was clear as to why you're here and that fits that purpose. All right, and anytime we come together as a group, of people, students or adults. We kind of want to bring ourselves to the space, and I'm going to get you to do a little check-in question with the people close to you. So just a few, maybe a minute or so. Share with the person next to you, what are you most proud of accomplishing this year? And keep it open. This could be something you're proud of as a parent, in your professional life, as a partner, as a friend. What is something that you feel really proud of? And when you're sharing, think about what attribute do you think that most connects to? And the attributes are on the table, but we also have them. Do we just have the one poster? We have the one poster is there when we talk about our attributes. So I'll give you about a minute to share. I don't know if you would like to join one of these tables. Share with the person next to you, what are you proud of? Why do you think we started off asking that question? Why do we ask people to reflect on their accomplishments?
Because you'll ask them, students to do the same. And the student level problem.
Yeah, there's the practical reason that this is similar. We're going to ask our students to think about. I'll push back a little bit more. Why else? Why do you think this is valuable?
I think sometimes we more often see our failures or where we fall short. So if we're forced to focus on the things that we are doing well at or that we're working on,
Yeah, there's that negativity bias, right? Like we're often focused on those things like, oh, I could have done that better, or this thing is really hard for me. But definitely when we focus on our positives, you're like, oh, look, there's a lot I've accomplished or I can be proud of. Any other thoughts as to why ask this question? Maybe even why connect it to the attributes?
Because of our feelings is something that we can share to them. So it would help also to be in a positive attitude.
Like an emotional connection to that? Yeah?
Yeah, when you feel good with yourself, you somehow transmit that.
So that kind of, we talked about empathy over here and that awareness of other people, and we can grow in other people's growth as well, right? When we celebrate other people's successes, we can start to recognize in ourselves that growth. Yeah? Any other thoughts? I'm going to touch very briefly on research in a little bit, but when we do have that emotional connection and that awareness of things we've done in the past, we're more likely to internalize it as well, and we're more likely to build on that success. And so when we focus on that success now, we're more likely to remember when things get harder, oh, look at what I have been able to accomplish. I know I can do this. I know I've seen success. And so we need those moments in time to pause and to reflect and to celebrate our successes when things aren't going as well as we want them to do. And again, we are more likely to remember those when we have conversation, right? Just being able to collaborate and to share with each other, then, I know I will remember some of these conversations for a lot longer than when I was like, oh, this morning I snapped at my 3-year-old because he woke up too early. I'm like, okay, that I can put aside. And now this is filling me more. This is something that will help me more think about those successes that we've had. So thank you for engaging in that activity. There's lots of reasons why we do that, but I appreciate also thank you for your vulnerability and sharing. Like I'm assuming most of you in this space don't know each other, and you shared really personal things. I mean, that's really special. So thank you for that.
And good little insight into what happens with your kids every day, right? That's happening every day. Like the first 10 minutes of the day, they like to have some sort of check-in like that, multiple times a day. And sometimes we hear like, well, what are you guys doing to teach X, Y, Z? Like, are you talking about being kind to each other? Every day, right? We're doing these types of things that are self-reflective. How are we? What's a good person? How does it look like? And it's just embedded so many points of the day. And I know that's probably a different space for you to get to today, right? Ooh, yeah, I got to think about that. So thanks for doing that. And know it happens a lot here.
Well, and that, we all know we only learn when we feel safe and we feel connected to people. So again, for our students, and the reason we're doing this and we want students to reflect is when they feel safe and respected as a student in the classroom, they're learning, regardless of what it is, right? We can't learn when we don't feel safe and connected to the people in the classroom with us. So another reason why we do that. I'm just gonna kind of just go through this a little bit quickly, but there's so many reasons why we have shifted to a student-led conference. And not to say the traditional parent-teacher-student conference isn't important, right? We know that that's valuable when those happen in the fall and October especially, right? We're all getting to know each other. We're developing that partnership between student, parent, and child. Those are very valuable. But to shift to now spring when students have done, a significant amount of learning, the research has shown that this is a really great time to really amplify that student voice and for students to take some more ownership of their learning. They're way more aware of some of their strengths and some of those areas of growth because we've had those conversations throughout the year. Another reason why we've shifted to a student-led conference approach is it really develops all of these things, right? When students are asked to be articulate and to communicate their learning, right? That's important for them to be able to do. I'll take it, self-aware, right? You have to have a real strong self-awareness for you to be able to recognize your strengths. And after having conversations with students, sometimes they struggle to be like, I don't know. And we do need to prompt them a little bit. But we're developing their self-awareness by going through a student-led conference approach. Their ability to reflect, right? We just talked about that. To set goals and to think about how they may want to end the year. The good thing about these conferences, we still have 6 weeks of learning after them, right? And so you're going to see where they're currently at and where, hey, let's try and focus a little bit on this area because you're having so much success here. Maybe this is an area that we might want to spend some time over for the next couple weeks. And I say 6 weeks. Well, yeah, but 6th graders, you got 6 years. There's lots, and beyond, right? We're all still learners. This is all valuable. Again, like I mentioned, not only do the fall conferences help strengthen these relationships with parents, students, and teachers, but these conferences as well, because we're really putting the student at the center. We're putting their learning right at the center. You're going to be able to see artifacts of their learning from all of their classes, and that becomes the focus of the conferences. Did you want to add anything else to a why? There are so more, but these are the ones that, when we were making this decision and really thinking about what's the most valuable outcome of a conference as this approach, these were really the 4 things. And as a school, what I didn't put up is our aspirations, and our Engage All aspiration is really being thoughtful and intentional of embedding our attributes. And again, this is a really great place where students can really stop and pause, because we're doing all of these things. The students are doing these things all the time, but maybe they're not always aware. So if we can stop and pause and think, and actually when you go into classrooms, you might notice these attributes specific, like the math classes all say, this is what it looks like to be empathetic in a math classroom. So maybe take a note of that when you go in. I'm not going to read these quotes, but for those of you who really like to see the research that backs a lot of this, tons of research has shown that a student-led conference approach, specifically in the middle upper grades. Elementary, right? This is a pretty established approach to conferences in elementary, and they do a great job. Like I love when I've done pre-K, K1 conferences, but it's actually even more developmentally appropriate for our middle and high school students to do this, because they have a little bit more of that skill set to be like, hey, look, I'm proud of this because I did this. So we want to continue to develop the skills that they were growing and being able to demonstrate in elementary and now through to middle school. So again, not reading the quotes, but if you do a quick scan, each of the quotes do connect to each of those 4 previous bullets. Okay, here's just the logistics, and there might be some questions, okay, especially this is slightly different than last year. Last year, and you're used to scheduling conferences. So based on some feedback from last year, based on looking at other models that other schools have used, actually personally I did work at a school that did this approach as well, where it's going to be a free flow. And so you're welcome to come to school anytime between 8:20 to 3:20. You are encouraged to visit all of the 8 blocks that your child is in. And I would say you might want to arrange to have 2 hours of your day to go through this experience. And so when you walk into a classroom, you'll see that there'll be 5 or 6 groups of tables together. And if one is free, you'll go into that space. The teacher will come and connect and say hi. And there'll be about 5 to 6 families in a room. If at that point the room is full, you're encouraged to go to another. So this was another piece of the feedback, is when you're scheduled in, you might only be able to get to 3 or 4 of the classes that your students have, and this allows you to be able to get to all the different learning spaces that your student engages in. And so once you're in the room, okay, let's say it's not full, once you're in, you'll have about 10 minutes in that classroom, and there are 2 things that are going to happen there. First, your child is going to share some artifacts of learning and share some reflections they've already prepared for. They've already thought through, okay, in this year in ELA, this is the piece that I really want to show some growth and some learning in, and they'll talk you through that. But also in the classroom, and this is similar to the elementary experience, there'll be something to engage with. So the teachers will prepare, something to model or to I guess mimic, I guess model is the right word, a learning experience that they do on a day-to-day basis. So you can really feel and experience what that learning looks like in that classroom. So there'll be some sort of math activity, and there'll be some sort of engagement with something with the all the classes will have something prepared for you to do and to interact and to do shared learning with your child in that experience. And so, but it is designed to only take about 5 minutes, so you have the time to go to the other classes. Okay. Any questions about logistics? Again, this is a shift, so last year you had to schedule all of them. That was quite tricky, and so the feedback was the free flow will allow for more time. Maybe you want to have a little bit more time in one class, and maybe one class a little bit more, less time, and you can go throughout the whole class.
And it was deliberate last year. Like, we knew we were shifting from a scheduled system where people were comfortable with that, and we felt moving to a free flow system right off the bat. And it would be difficult on change management, right? That people would, what are we doing? How do we do it? And so we anticipated we would get feedback to say, hey, we should do free flow. And we did get that feedback, and now we find ourselves at a place where I think people are ready
So
for
did
that.
you recognize that it's better to do this?
Right,
flow?
right.
Because in my opinion, no, I was thinking that it was good to have like a schedule, not when you're like.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think in the principal's letter or maybe upcoming communication, we do say like letters, last name letters, A to whatever.
Yeah, in an attempt to control.
To
a
A to
little
J
bit.
maybe, come day one and then the others. But if you can, we're not going to monitor that, but just to encourage to have some the spreading of that.
Yeah, and it is the eternal battle. If you remember, I did a video last year when we launched it. We were asked to create more spaces so everyone can see every teacher and take less time. So those were two very difficult things to do, to say, I want more time with the teachers and I want you to do it over less days. This actually allowed us to do that, right? You can now see everybody because there's 5, 6, some rooms will even have more than 6 spots depending on their space, right? And you'll be able to see everyone, and we reduce it to 2 days. Instead, we've taken 3 days before, right? But mathematically, it doesn't work. Like, we cannot we would need, I think, I've done the math on it before, I think we need 5.5 full days for every family for one student to see. So if you have 2 or 3 in the middle school, mathematically it can't work, right? To have a scheduled appointment for 10 minutes with 8 teachers times. So we've done it, and we hope that this is where we land, and this is where we're going to continue.
Yeah, and any shift, right? We're always trying to grow and improve the system. So last year we collected feedback from students, parents, and teachers, and we'll do the same this year to continue to evolve and to ensure that we're finding the right fit for our context and our students and our families.
And what is the student-led part of this?
So let's see. I took a screenshot. So one of our design and digital design team, or I guess it's the Falcon Studio team, created a video. I think it's been shared, so you may or may not see it. And so this is this was their attempt. I'm not going to show the whole video, but let's imagine in their video, here's the teacher, the parent, and the student. And so the role, the student is leading the conference. The student is sharing and explaining their growth and their learning in classes right now in preparation of April 30th right now. In each of the individual classes, students are preparing. It might look different in different classes, but they all have one central place where they're collecting their evidence of learning. I didn't put that in the slide. But they all have one central place, and then they're going to talk you through, let's say you're in your math class with a student, they're going to talk through something that they really are proud of and they want to show some growth in. And then you, as the parent, are there encouraging and celebrating. It is exactly what we just did as a check-in, right? We are going to have some questions prepared, and actually that's one of the things we're going to get you to do is think about what questions would you want to ask your child about their learning. We'll get to that in a sec. So there will be some preempted questions there, and again, the student will also engage and be aware of what the activity is going to be like, and so they'll lead the learning with you. And the teacher is there. The teacher will stop in and touch base and talk and check in with you as a family, but it's not a time to say, hey, how is my child doing? Or, is there any concerns? Or if that is something that's important, and that is all communication with parents is always important, that is just done at a separate time. Because you want a more private space, because there's going to be multiple families in there. But it is a time, again, for that relationship building and for the teacher to share. They have lots of insight in your children and what they see as their strengths as well. So just know that it'll be more of a check-in from the teacher and how's everything going, and really proud of, sorry, I don't Everett, there we go, I know one of you. Everett's ability in this, and then they'll probably go on to the next family.
Michelle, if you refresh your screen, you can see the doc that you just created. Just refresh.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
If the teacher has a concern
Oh, here.
about, let's say, reading level, math level,
Yep.
distracted behavior, whatever,
Mhm.
anything, how would they, what's a good way for them to communicate that to us? Especially given that they've got so much going on.
Yeah, I have two answers, and maybe I'll ask two. So two, I mean, if there is a concern, teachers will reach out. I mean, multiple times a year, especially during the quarters. Teachers are encouraged to reach out to families of any concern and to either schedule an additional kind of separate meeting. Another great place to look at, some feedback about your child is the monthly email that gets sent out. And so how teachers now give feedback or comments on certain assignments throughout the year. And so has everyone received that email that we'll have every month? Here's all the comments for the assignment. And so,
Today.
was it today?
It'll come today.
Oh, good
And
timing.
it'll have the Week Without Walls comment on it as well, but any other assignments that have been done in the last calendar month will be on there. And so every month there's a bit of a mix, but we feel it's an improved way to communicate learning on the day-to-day. So if you notice something, it's an important place that you would notice, right?
Yeah.
And that would create a communication.
To that. And I guess, and ultimately, if you have some wonderings, you're also encouraged to reach out. But encouraging that communication at home, and if your daughter might not be sharing as much, and be like, oh, how, I'm curious about how math is going, you're welcome to do that as well.
Yeah.
But if there is a concern, there is set times in the year that teachers are encouraged to reach out.
Yeah, a lot of times, maybe I'm the only parent, but a lot of times kids will be like, fine,
Yeah.
good.
Oh, you're not the only parent.
You should have come to the other Talk Tuesday I did with Miss Davis about how to talk to your kids about their learning. We gave all these different kind of tips about that. But
It's fascinating.
well, and this is this is actually intentional. This is a structured time where, for better or worse, your child can't escape that conversation, right? They're preparing for that conversation. You're going to be prepared for that conversation. And so, when kids aren't talking, you do have to have a more structure to it because it's not as free flow or as natural as it was when they were younger. And so having these structured times makes it, and by putting them in the position, again, in the fall conference, also important, but the teacher is the one probably doing a lot of the communicating and explaining, whereas they can't shy away from that ownership or that responsibility of their learning. Good. So this is it's very simple. Again, this is an improvement from last year. Last year was quite a cumbersome document, but this is one place, and they're linking all their evidence of learning for each of their blocks.
These reminders for the students?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just took this from their advisory slide. So they're working on it. It
Yeah.
was introduced just before spring break through their advisory. Their advisory teacher made sure they made their own copy of this, and now they're spending the next 2 weeks in each of their content classes with their content teacher going through saying, what would good evidence be? What are you proud of this year? Don't forget we did this, we did this, we did this, and where is it all? And they're taking that time to help curate it.
Yeah. So again, the students are doing the preparation, and the teachers are preparing the students. For you, right, it's like I said, just coming and celebrating and asking some questions and being curious and open-minded about their learning, and they'll be more likely to share as well. Okay. So this is more of the how, okay? How to make this even more successful for you and for other families, because what we're gonna ask you to do is we have a list of classes we're gonna pop into. Hopefully we can get into at least 3-ish. And when you go into these classes, we're gonna ask you to look for 2 things. One, and you can take these cards with you, is look for these attributes in action. What do you notice the students are doing that's helping them to develop these attributes? Okay, and you can kind of see the intentionality of the teachers designing the learning. But the other thing we would like you to do, and these are our sustainable sticky notes, they're scrap paper cut small, is think about if your child was in that class, and maybe they will be, but maybe we'll ask you not to necessarily talk to your child today. But We can maybe try and not.
Elementary, they come running to you.
I know, I know. I'm going to miss those days. But write down, if you were in that moment, what would you want to ask your child about their learning at that time? And we'll collect these questions, and we'll provide these list of questions to everyone on that day and say, here's some questions that, I mean, we have some prepared as well, but we're not in everyone's brains, and you might have some really interesting things of like, oh, you know, why is it that you chose to do that? Or so think about questions you would love to dig in with your child about their learning. We'll collect those. We'll have those prepared for the day of the conferences, and then also the attributes, because we're going to connect all their learning to attributes. What questions do you have? Because I realize I'm putting you to work. So,
I'm sorry.
okay, that's all right.
Sorry, I will miss this one. Sorry about that.
Thank you for coming. All right. So maybe take some of the cards and a pen. And any other final questions? Because I don't think we'll come back to this space. I think we might debrief after, maybe in the middle school office. So is there any questions before we move to this